Okay, good morning again. Thanks for joining us today for today's Counselor Connect session. My name is Amanda Callahan. I coordinate Counselor Connect, which is a statewide network of support for counselors and social workers. It's operated by the Central Indiana Educational Service Center, or CIESC. We are joined by 4 presenters today, which we will introduce them here in just a second. They're going to be talking about interactive impact, K-12 strategies for successful Tier 1 classroom lessons. So we have a lot of people who registered for today's session. So clearly this is a topic that I think a lot of people have interest in. So thanks for joining us. And then let's go ahead and welcome our 4 presenters today. We have Tim Adams from Pierre Moran Middle School. Julie Hill is from Phalen Leadership Academy. Aimee Portteus is with Inspire Success. And Crimson Smith is with Glenwood Leadership Academy. Welcome, and they may share a little bit more about themselves as they take over. So that would be great. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Crimson. So Crimson, can you get us started?
I can. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So I've been in public education for 16 years. Most of my time has spent in the middle school setting. So 9 years of that was in the middle school setting as a language arts teacher. And then I was also, when I started out, I was a teacher's aide for 3 years. And then this is my 4th year of being a school counselor at the K-8 level. This is the only level I've been at as a school counselor. And then this year, I got to go to Indianapolis in November because I completed the Carrying the Torch to Student Success program, which I just want to talk a little bit about that. Not a lot, but that is, a fairly new program. And I feel like some counselors may be hesitant to do anything that's new and jump into it. I am the only counselor in my building of 470 students. This is a doable program. It does take time. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It takes time, but it is doable. And I did do it in the 2 years. So, of course, along with getting the Gold Star award for that is RAMP is reciprocal. So I also am getting RAMP recognition this summer at that conference. So there's a little bit about education. Personal things. Tomorrow is my 16th anniversary. My husband and I will have been married 16 years tomorrow. 2 dogs, no kids. They are my kids. And sorry if there's any men. Tim, sorry, my husband's my child too. And I love to read, cook, and bake. So there's just a little bit about me. All right, so let's get into this. The curriculum, right? There's good, bad, and ugly parts to this. So in the EVSC, the Evansville-Vandenberg County School Corporation, we have a curriculum that is created by a group of counselors on the curriculum team. So every summer, this group of counselors, which I have intentions of joining, I just haven't done it yet, they get together throughout the summer and they create lessons and they make sure, we are using the ASCA format with our lessons, and they put together a curriculum map just as teachers would follow. We have a curriculum map as well. And in a minute, I will show you some screenshots of that. But there are a couple required lessons. We have our attendance lesson and the CCT lesson, which is the comprehensive counseling team lesson. So the other lessons that are there are, people would love if you did all of them, but when I show you the curriculum map, especially being in K-8, it's really hard for me to get all of those in, and we'll talk about some barriers, but the lessons are delivered by me primarily. I do send some out via video. So I go into the classrooms and do the ones that are required. And I also make sure I am in the classrooms doing ones for my 8th graders about high school, because I think it's important that I'm there and I can answer questions and they see my face and all the things. But there are other lessons that I record with Google and send those out to teachers. And then I offer to come in, and if the teacher says, hey, I really don't want to do this, I'd rather you come in and give them, then that's what I do. But for the most part, they go ahead and show them in their rooms, and then I'm just an email away or whatever if they have any questions. And the lesson frequency is a lot. So keep in mind, I am K-8, so that is different. But if you want to go ahead to the next slide, I will kind of walk you through. So the top one where it says, first, second, third, fourth quarter, that is K-5. That is our curriculum for K-5. And if you notice, it aligns pretty well with the bottom half, which is our middle school. So for example, quarter 2, so there's 8 lessons in quarter 2 that I would need to give in a 9 weeks, and that is pretty impossible sometimes. So that is why I use the video option, because it's really hard for me to get in and do all of those things. With in the EVSC, we are also test coordinators for our building, so we are doing all the checkpoints, and I learn and I read and all of those things. So with state testing and small groups and classroom lessons and all of the things on a day-to-day basis, it can be challenging. That would definitely be one of the barriers, is there's a lot in a K-8 and any other school to get through to be able to deliver these messages or these lessons. Teacher buy-in, I have found, I've been a teacher, I've been in their shoes. I was there for 9 years and I taught language arts, and I know how much time it takes to be able to hit all the standards that you're required to hit as a teacher. But there are times when teachers, I feel that they're just like, that's just something else we have to do, and I get it. But some of these lessons, really are important. And that's why I try to get in the classroom on the ones that I think are just absolutely imperative for students to know. Admin buy-in. I am blessed to work in a school where my admin is pretty supportive. However, I mean, she will tell you herself, she told me when I first got hired, I don't know your job, I've never done your job, but I will support you in all things. And she has, but just knowing, she's never been in a counseling position, and she doesn't, may not realize the importance of all of these lessons. So for the most part, I have the buy-in. And then absent students is always going to be a barrier. So I have a Google Classroom for my counseling program for my middle schoolers. The little ones really I don't think they really access it a lot. 4th and 5th grade probably would, but I do put my lessons on my Google Classroom and let students know that they can go there to see the video lesson. And of course, if they have any questions, they're welcome to come to me. And then our ELL students, we have an ever-growing population of ELL students. We actually have an event going on right at this moment in our building with some translators here for ELL students to be able to ask questions and get information and stuff like that. So we have a very heavy Spanish population. We have some Haitian Creole, and then I don't know if anybody else is experiencing what we are down here in Evansville, but we have a very, large and growing Marshallese population. Usually when I say that, people have no idea what I'm talking about, and I didn't either until they started joining our school. So the Marshall Islands are very small islands located between Hawaii and Asia, and they, for some reason, I don't know, I guess they like Evansville, but they are coming to our schools down here, and Marshallese is a very kind of tribal language. So even when I put things into AI and hope that AI can translate it for me, AI tells me that because of the nuances of the language, it is not going to be a word for word translation. So we really have trouble getting things to our Marshallese population. So that's all a work in progress. But that is all I have for me. And I know that we're probably going to take questions at the end. So, Tim?
All right. Well, in advance, I want to apologize. If you see my screen go to black, I'm just coughing. I do apologize. I've been kind of having a sore throat the last few days, and it's really difficult to talk. And I had contemplated like not even coming, but I figured I would do my best to show up and put forth that effort for you all. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Again, my name's Tim Adams. I am the school counselor at Pierre Middle School. We're located in Elkhart, Indiana, so we're right on that Michigan border. This is my 7th year as a school counselor. I've spent 6 years in the middle school level, and I actually had the opportunity to spend 1 year at the elementary school level, and that was a really cool experience for me. To describe my school, we are pretty small. We have about 400 students, but we're very high needs. The majority of the students at my school are free reduced lunch. I think it's about 56%. We have a large EL population as well, around 60%, and we have a special ed population of about 20%. So when you come to like look at everything, the majority of the students at my school, they have a TOR. And that's, I don't know how normal that is, but I was kind of like caught off guard when I was going through the ramp process and we were kind of collecting that data and we saw that information. So a little bit more, before I was a school counselor, I was a pastor. So I was a children's pastor, I was a youth pastor, I was an associate pastor. I also had the opportunity to serve as a social worker that was contracted out by the Department of Child Services. So I worked with families on reunification, which was kind of an interesting job. It was pretty fulfilling most of the time. I became a school counselor in 2018. And I remember when I first got on as a school counselor, I was like, man, I just want to ramp. If I've ramped, I've made it. You know, I've been successful. And I tried so hard over the years and just nothing was working out because I am in a high needs school. And when I came on, the culture wasn't the greatest. I didn't necessarily have the buy-in from my administrators at that point as well. And the teachers really did not want me coming into their classroom because it was their classroom time. And being a lower level school, they needed as much time as possible with students. So things were pretty tough for me. I would say probably my first 4 years. So if anybody's a new school counselor in here, like it's okay if things are rough. Like we could still get through this. At one point, I actually thought about leaving education like altogether. I was like, maybe I'm not meant to be a school counselor. And really, it wasn't until about 2 years ago. I had a just kind of a heart to heart with my principal at the time, and he was basically just kind of threw it out there. He's like, oh, one thing about me is I always have liked people knowing what I was doing. I like to kind of brag and it wasn't the greatest quality. And so he kind of had that sit down heart to heart with me and was like, we see what you're doing. We know you're doing a great job. Keep it up and just we get, do your work, man. Just do your job. And I kind of took that to heart and the very following, or I guess that particular year was probably my hardest year as a school counselor yet. So we had no school counseling secretary. I had no other school counselor in my building. We've always had two. And our social worker was on pregnancy leave. And I also was expected to go into the classroom quite a bit. And I was like, oh my goodness, like how could I do this? And yet I was able to make it work. I actually tried to go through the Carrying the Torch program, but I was a little bit too late because I was just so overwhelmed with life. But I continued to advocate for changes in my school. And so that following year, those changes happened. We were able to bring in another school counselor again, who's absolutely amazing. We were able to bring in our first ever full-time school counseling secretary. We then went back through the Carrying the Torch program and went through that in a single year. So we received that Gold Star status. Just a few weeks ago, we received that official word that we received a ramp status as well. So like all this hard work really pays off. I've continued to advocate as well in our district. So next year we are in a transition process. We are actually incorporating sixth graders into our building for the first time ever. And I had been advocating with our district to bring in a school counselor for that position. And they have agreed to bring in school counselors, not just at my school, but all the middle schools here in Elkhart. So it's so exciting about the amazing things that we're doing here in Elkhart Community Schools. Just briefly touching back on me personally, I've been married to my amazing wife for 15 years now. I'm kind of like her child as well. We have 4 other children and a dog who's kind of like our child as well. So my wife fills big shoes. She's also a teacher, so she's in education. She understands kind of the commitment that I have and the passion that I have because she follows that same expectation for her role. I'm a huge sports fan. I love IU basketball. I'm a big Notre Dame football fan, but throughout anything else, I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan. So that's kind of just about me. As we transition to the next slide about Tier 1 curriculum, we also have a county collaborative here in Elkhart County. It is absolutely amazing. So this comprehensive counseling initiative, it focuses on K through 12. And so we received a grant back in, I think it was like 2017, and we started this initiative. And then we were also able to bring in Hatching Results to work together as a county collaborative. And for me, I came in the second year of that, but it was just so uplifting and so inspiring, which kind of kept me wanting to do what I do in order to try to have success at my level. And I will state right now that I don't feel like I'm like the most successful guy in the world. I don't feel like I'm an expert at anything, but I love trying hard and I love giving my heart and my soul to my school and to my students. Going on to our Tier 1 curriculum. So I try to put in about 3 to 4 classroom lessons per year per grade level. Right now, I'm fortunate enough again to have another school counselor. So this year, that's kind of been split in half for me. So usually in August, I go into the 7th grade classrooms and I teach a self-regulation lesson to students. So we go over like deep breathing strategies and other type of coping strategies when they're just feeling emotionally dysregulated. We then go through in September and I do a Habits for Success lesson with our students in collaboration with our College and Careers course that we offer here, which is super amazing. I go over a SMART goals lesson usually in November. And then second semester, we do what's called Career Quest. So I just kind of lead the lessons. Another organization outside of our school kind of handles the Career Quest. But our students take kind of like a field trip and we learn about like manufacturing and we learn about construction and healthcare and a bunch of other really amazing stuff. For our 8th grade group, they do something very similar, but it's during the first semester of the year. We call it Manufacturing Day. So Elkhart's kind of a big manufacturing community, and we're kind of like considered the RV capital of the world. So we send our students out to the factories and we let them experience what it's like to work at a factory and what types of jobs that you could have, from like HR to management, just to the floor. Anything that's able to be offered to them, just to kind of get them excited about the job opportunities in our county. We also go through a coping with stress lesson with our students, especially in November. It's toward the end of the semester. Students are kind of stressing out about their grades, and we're trying to help them out in that case. And then finally, at the very end, usually in December, we try to sign every student up as possible for their Scholar Track accounts. That is a long process to do. So that's kind of most of the curriculum that we offer. I also go out to our 6th grade, our 6th grade buildings, which will be here next year. So I go out to our elementary schools that feed into us. So we have about 7 of them here. And I transition the middle school lesson. I like the students to get to know me. I like to get them excited about what's to come because they're so nervous to come to middle school. And so my goal is to always try to ease that anxiety as much as I can. So I just love going out to all the elementary schools and building rapport with the principals there and the teachers there and also the students. Now, leading into second semester at Pierre Moran, our focus is primarily small groups. We help with testing as well. So I've been a part of the checkpoints here at our school. I do not necessarily have to do the makeups, but we will help with I-Learn makeups. And then second semester, especially in middle school and really in high school, it's focused a lot on scheduling. So we do that, and we also collaborate with our admin team to set goals for the next year because we want to align our goals with their goals. So on top of that, I also serve as our school's Alveus bully prevention coordinator. So it's kind of a fun little job. I tie that into with our Bring Change to Mind group that we offer here at Pierre Moran as well, which is kind of a nice little group that we have. We're currently the largest middle school group in the nation, which is just such a blessing to be a part of. Going on to the next slide, just to talk about barriers a little bit. There's so many different barriers that I have faced over my career. The ones on here are the ones I've experienced, I guess, most frequently. The biggest one was, and Julie's going to discuss one of these, so I'm not going to touch base on that. But the other barrier is, what classes to present in. Because, when I came into a building that was so high needs and the culture just wasn't there, they're not used to a school counselor. They're not used to an active school counselor, especially being in the classroom and wanting to present lessons. It was very difficult to kind of like wedge my way into the classroom, but I was able to do it. I know I maybe didn't make a lot of people happy at times because I was taking their valuable classroom time, but the way I presented it was, I'm only going to be in your classroom one time a year. And that kind of allowed some ease and some compromise with our teachers. Like, okay, you're only in my classroom maybe a day a year. I can handle that. And with that being said, that allowed us to do up to 8 lessons per year just in our core classes alone, not yet alone our electives. So it allowed us to kind of, get into the classroom and start building that curriculum, building that program that we're supposed to have here at Moran. So ever since then, I'm telling you, like, I haven't had any single issues. Anytime I want to go into the classroom, teachers like, come on in. And so it's so exciting to, to have that now, but it does take time. The other part is just time constraints, because we're so busy as school counselors. It could be very difficult to find time amidst all the stuff that we are doing. But again, this is what scheduling is for ahead of time. I put it on my calendar and that's what I follow. And I make that a priority. So the other part is the time while you're inside the classroom. Usually you have about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. And getting all that time in for your lesson can be a little difficult. Also, the one thing I did a little bit of research on recently was about attention spans. And it was kind of mind-boggling to me, but back in 2015, so like a little over 10 years ago, the attention span of the average student was 8.25 seconds. Well, today it's around 7 seconds. And so getting their attention is so, so important. And to kind of give you a realization of like how odd this is, the attention span of a goldfish is only 9 seconds long, which means our students have a shorter attention span than a goldfish does. And yet we're expected to keep their attention as much as possible. So my goal is to be as engaging, as an efficient, and impactful as I can during that time with them. So then you can kind of go into like classroom behavior. Sometimes you're going to have classes that you might have students act up. For me, I make sure the teacher is in that classroom at all times. That is my agreement. They are not allowed to leave their classroom because they know how to manage the classroom. That's one skill I do not have very much. Lucky for me, I'm the school counselor, and one of my jobs is to build relationships with these students and rapport and their trust. So once I have that, I don't have as many issues, but you still have them and you need your teacher on your side. So they will be the ones that pull students out to the hallway to kind of speak with them. And I let the teachers know this in advance. Hey, if I'm having an issue, can you make sure to do this? And then usually I try to walk around the classroom as much as possible. I stand next to students, especially if I see they're kind of getting a little off track. It kind of gets their attention a little bit more. So that's kind of helped me a little bit. And our other language barrier that I've faced is the fact that we have such a high EL population here. Um, so many of our kids here at my school don't speak English, or they speak very little English, or they understand very little English. So we are so blessed at our school to have two of the most amazing EL teachers, like seriously, I could ever dreamed for. And so usually for classroom lessons, we do one of a few things. I either make sure I pull all the EL1 and 2 students, and I do a lesson just with them, and then the teacher will translate, and we usually will use like our advisory time to make that happen. But if I'm in the classroom, sometimes I'll use students to kind of be like a buddy and to help translate. And usually those students, I want to give positive reinforcement to. Hey, thank you so much for all your help. I really appreciate that. Hey, see me later. I got a piece of candy for you or something like that. Like I always try to reward our students for the good behaviors that they have. So also, I've never used these, but I know a few of our teachers do. There are programs that you could use in the classroom where you speak and it'll translate in Spanish behind you. I think the only barrier is if there's kind of commotion going on behind you, it'll pick up anything because it's very sensitive. So I've decided not to use that. Going on to the tips and tricks. So one thing I really love to do is when I'm going through a lesson, I kind of have like my 3 simple rules that I go with through my students. And one of them is if you see something underlined, you read it out loud. And I do that because students retain that information more than they would if they would just listen to me. And so I think it's like 25% more retention. And then if you add that retention with an activity that you have them participating in, their retention could go as high as up to 90% more as to whether they were just listening to you. So I love just to have student feedback on that. And as a part of that, that's why I try to incorporate that engaging part. So either doing like a think, pair, share, or a turn and talk. And and I kind of wrestle with what one to do depending on how much time I have available. If I have a little bit more time and I want to go a little bit more in depth, we'll do a think, pair, share. But if I just want students just to talk, and I might do like a little lightning round like right after it, we might just do a turn and talk. I also just love thumbs up and thumbs down because the thing is not every student likes to talk. We have shy students in our schools. We have shy students in our classrooms. And so sometimes just saying, hey, what did you think about that? Did you like it? Give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. If you're like so-and-so, give me that thumb sideways. And so that allows students to give quick responses, and it'll also allow students that maybe don't like to talk to be able to be engaged with some feedback. The same thing with Fist of Five. I love Fist of Five, and I actually learned this through the Hatching Results training and the Hatching Results book that Tris Hash put out. It's very similar to thumbs up, thumbs down, but you do the Fist of Five. Give me a 0 if you didn't understand anything. Throw up a 1 or 2 if you kind of understood. Maybe a 3 or 4 if you have a pretty good understanding, or give me that 5 if you completely understand what I'm talking about. And it gives you just immediate feedback, which is so amazing. If you see a lot of lower numbers, then this is my time where I could kind of reteach and explain again. Finally, I love using Pear Deck. Pear Deck is so amazing. It does cost money for the version that I like to use, but it is a tool that I use for classroom lessons and in small groups because it's interactive. I use it through Google Slides, and students give live feedback. You could poll students. You could just do so much more to it. And it is one of the most amazing tools that I have purchased. So that is just a little bit that I wanted to share. Again, if you have any questions or want any information about the lessons that I teach, like I am so happy to provide you with anything and everything you need. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to do so. So again, thank you so much for your time.
All right, looks like I'm up. So I am Julie Hill, and I'm super excited to be here with you all. And thank you for giving up some time this morning to talk a little bit more about some of these tier 1 interventions. Apparently I'm the senior member of our panel. I've been a school counselor for 25 years. So I have been at elementary, middle, and high. So I've been in K-12 buildings. I've been K-6. I've been 7-12, all the things. But I am currently at J.R. Phalen Leadership Academy High School. We are a public charter school on the east side of Indianapolis. Previously, I've been in rural settings, so kind of been all around experience-wise. But what I find is our kids are the same, and it's sort of the structure and the neighborhood and the adults that tend to be different. So, but I have been very blessed, like our previous 2 presenters, to have gone through the Carrying the Torch to Student Success process and finished the Gold Award. I've actually ramped, this is my 2nd school that I have ramped. So I had ramped at a previous school as well. What I would say, and I've been in schools where, and I think Tim alluded to this a little bit, where there just was not administrative buy-in for the ramp process. And I get that too. I get where you might be in a school where your colleagues aren't necessarily on board with doing all of the things. And it's not for the faint of heart, but like Crimson said, it is very doable. And when we did the Carrying the Torch redesign from the former Gold Star process, we created it with bronze, silver, and gold stars. So if you are wanting to implement some kind of comprehensive program, but Gold Star ramp is more than you can bite off right in this moment, you can start with the bronze, and that takes it's less goal setting. It's just the kind of the getting your feet wet with the process, learning how to use some of your data to make meaningful inroads. So I would really encourage you, and I think a lot of you probably are already doing those things. You just aren't putting them formally in a portal and calling it that. So consider that. Look into, okay, well, maybe if by myself I want to do the bronze program, so I'm going to think about the vision and the mission. I'm going to maybe set one goal. I'm going to look at some of my data. So those sorts of things are very manageable if you aren't feeling like you can jump into the deep end of the pool yet. Other experience, I have been an adjunct professor for Indiana Wesleyan, so I got to teach the internship course for several years. So that was a great part of my history. I've kind of been around on the boards for a million years. So I started on the ISCA board in 2007. And have done the president track, have been chair of many of the different committees. And then I also served on the ASCA board for the 6 years, with 3 as the chair of the board, which was fantastic professional development. So I would just give a plug that any of you, I remember sitting at, my first conferences going, I could never be that guy. And, eventually I became that guy. So just an incredible number of people will help to pour into you. The ability is there, the skills are there. And so just trusting that and letting this network of colleagues help you to grow as a leader. So I would give you a plug that if you want to get more involved in ISCA, please reach out to our current ISCA board members. I've also been a reviewer for both RAMP and the Carrying the Torch program. So as school counselors are submitting their applications, I get to sit there and review them. One of the things I will give a plug for, RAMP is very intense. The Carrying the Torch model, we have built it that we want you to find success. And so it's a coaching model. So it is not, oh, you didn't get it. It's, okay, this particular element isn't what we need you to be. These are the things that we would ask you to correct and resubmit. So we really are trying to provide guidance to talk you through that entire process so that you can be successful through that. I was honored as Indiana School Counselor of the Year in 2023. And I was a 2020 national finalist for an ACTE Career Guidance Award. So all that to say, I've been really blessed to have amassed a network of people that just have poured so much expertise into me and really have built a foundation for my practice. And now that I am the sort of veteran counselor here, hopefully I can do that as a mentor for those who will follow me. Personal life, I'm a wife, I guess, because I'm committed to school counseling. My husband is also a school counselor. In fact, we are counselors at the same school. We share an office. So I've not hit the colleague eject button just yet, but it's exciting because, you know, when you need to have a meeting with your colleague, you can do it in the car on the way home too. So that's been really an exciting thing. I am a mom, so I have 2 adult children, and I am a Grammy. So I have a teenager, a 3-year-old, and a newborn in my Grammy world. So I'm blessed to do all of those things. And I guess, you know, since we're talking about our sports fans, I am an NFL owner. So the Green Bay Packers are publicly owned. And so they're the only publicly owned team in the NFL. And so I do own stock in the NFL. So I feel like I should get a say, but I don't. So I just cheer for them. So, all right. So jumping into the curriculum. So as Tim mentioned, I'm going to talk about the when you don't have curriculum. Because a lot of districts are very blessed to have, you know, these research-based programs or even self-written programs that everybody's doing the same thing and there's an expectation there. I have never been in one of those corporations in my 25 years. And so being very thoughtful and intentional about how you then come up with a curriculum when you also don't have a budget for said curriculum. So I think my first tip is to use a template. There's a template in the Carrying the Torch program. There's a template that ASCA makes available. You don't have to be going through either RAMP or Carrying the Torch to get to those templates. You can get there. But I think using a template really helps you to be intentional and meaningful about providing your lessons. It talks about how you're going to use what standards, what mindsets and behaviors that you are going to be targeting with this. And it makes sure that your lessons then are more meaningful and they are not what we used to call random acts of guidance. We all get those lessons that are like super fun and we like to do them. But if they're not truly making an impact on our students, is that where we should be spending our time? Because we all know time use is a thing. I would say using your networking resources is your very first line of defense. I know I'm a Facebook user. I haven't really jumped both feet into all of the other platforms, but all of the social media platforms have school counselor groups. And all the time you can see, hey, I'm needing a lesson about ... And 20 people will, you know, suddenly be sending you a file. So use those resources. Counselor One Stop is out there, as well as the CIESC has a curriculum library. And I think Amy's going to be talking about those a little bit later today. ASCA has a library. Any other resources in your state, going to conferences. So all of those sorts of things. The other thing that I like to think about a lot is, you know, who else can be in your network. So even if you're the only counselor in your building, do you have a district level counselor group, or do you have it like in the county? Do you have a counselor group? If you don't, consider consider starting one. Even if you only meet a couple of times a year, you can share resources, trends, what things are going on in your neck of the woods, and how then can you tap into each other's resources. And then just finding, there are free curriculum out there. Now you have to be really thoughtful, and you're probably not going to use all of them. And really any of the curriculum, and unless you have, you know, a really small caseload and the ideal situation, you're still not going to get to all the curriculum in any of the purchased curriculum. So selecting the lessons that specifically target the mindsets and behaviors and skills that you're going after. So like one that I know of that's free is Overcoming Obstacles, and they've got, you know, a lot of different resources out there, and you open it up and I'm looking for a lesson on this, and, you know, oh, there's 3 of them. So pick one, either do it as it's published or modify it in a way that works for you and for your school. For some people, at the high school level, you might have a whole class period, so you're filling 50 minutes. For other people, you may have 20 minutes. And so, you know, you've also got to be aware of how you can make the most of that time so that it works well for your school. And then, like I said, avoiding random acts of guidance. So just really being thoughtful about the topics that you are choosing and what you might be able to do. So, all right, next slide. So the other considerations, so teacher class time and teacher willingness. So I think Tim kind of mentioned this. Sometimes it's hard to get your foot in the door. So what I would say, you know, first out of the gate is, do you have a champion? Do you have somebody that really believes in what you're doing that can be that first teacher that's going to take the leap with you? At the high school level, kids are all over. So it's a little bit more challenging sometimes to get those lessons in. Does your school have an advisory period? Do they have a homeroom period? If they don't, you know, thinking about how are you going to deliver this tier 1 curriculum to all students, which means I got to find a class that they all have, or I've got to do this assembly style and call down, you know, 200 kids at once. So different models are going to work better than others. For us, if I need them and I don't have access to a homeroom or advisory period, I'm going to usually an English class because they've all got English 10, or maybe US history because all of my juniors are taking US history, or, you know, whatever it is, being thoughtful about that. To get that teacher buy-in, you know, Tim said I asked them to stay in the classroom. For me, I will invite them to stay in the classroom and tell them I would love for them to be part of what we're learning together. But if not, hey, if they need an extra prep, do you need to go make copies? Do you want to actually eat lunch with a fork? All of the things that, you know, they don't get to do on a normal basis. That can be your foot in the door sometimes. If you're offering to take their class, they may be on board with that. The other thing that I've done too is I've checked with our office people. Do I have a teacher who's going to be out one day? You know, is my English teacher has a meeting on Thursday? Well, you know, instead of having them make extensive subplans, I'm your subplan for that day, and I'm going to, you know, get your classes that way. So you can be creative with all of that. I know you also, you know, trying to tie in your lessons. When I was at the elementary school, I loved using bibliotherapy. And so I was in a building that did the AR program with reading. And so I made sure that the books that I chose were on the AR list. So then kids could get the AR points, and, you know, so they loved that as well. At the high school level, thinking about, you know, maybe if I'm asking an English teacher to incorporate writing prompts. So, you know, they can be judging the grammar and the language uses and all the things, but at the end they're, you know, writing a college essay or that sort of thing. The other pieces that I would throw out in terms of timing are, as Tim said, your EL students. Also being really aware of your students with IEPs, especially like mobility issues. So if you are doing an activity that has them up and moving around, is that going to be appropriate for all the students? Do they all have the same level of mobility? And or do you need to modify that lesson in such a way that it is truly inclusive for all of your students that are in the room? A lot like Tim, I'll either bring in an interpreter, or sometimes, depending on the type of lesson that I'm doing, I will meet separately with our EL students so we can slow down. I can show the slides in whatever their native language is and all of those things to help them really get the most out of that lesson. Counselor availability. So thinking about, okay, if I'm in a classroom, if I'm going to be in English 10 classes all day, who is going to cover when the emergencies walk through the door, so that the principal isn't showing up in the English teacher's class saying, I need you to ... which then leaves the English teacher going, now what? And leaves all of the kids, in the lurch. So, obviously, if you have another counselor in your building, making sure that you're scheduling things in such a way that that person can be available to handle whatever emergencies walk through the office. If not, who else in your building? So is there an assistant principal who could cover the emergencies? But, then just being able to leave that note on your door that, I'm in this classroom, and if you have a need, this is where you need to go those days. And then I guess in terms of your delivery, you also want to think about how you are going to be thoughtful and intentional about assessing. So Tim talked about, the 0 to 5, which is great. But in terms of what data is then going to show that the students have mastered the skills that you are presenting. Now, obviously at the high school level, it's going to be very heavy on advising, scheduling, college and career readiness kinds of things. Because just from a structural standpoint, we don't have the ability to be in a classroom probably as much as we might like. But, if I go in and I'm talking about graduation requirements, I'm going to assess them. I'm going to make sure that when I walk out the door, I know who does and does not understand what those requirements are. And then how can I follow up? How can I boost that understanding and retention with the ones who are struggling? So I think that's important. And then lastly, in terms of your topics, having community support for your topics sometimes means creative marketing. So I might love to go in and do a, lesson on diversity in Black History Month, but I may not be in a community where that is acceptable. We all have seen legislation that hits around, you can't say SEL in some spaces and all of those things. But it doesn't mean we can't do the work. It just means that we have to be really mindful about it. A lot of these things are employability skills. These are skills that our future employers want our students to have. They used to be called the soft skills, but they are like the hardest skills, to be honest. And so just thinking about, if you're told you can't do a lesson about ... can you repackage it to get the same skills, mindsets across without saying the words that people don't want you to say? So with that, I will turn it over to Aimee or Amanda.
Aimee has just a few things she wants to say. We'll jump in with some samples of curriculum. I want to thank the speakers that we've had such great levels of experience and good advice. My name is Aimee Portteus, and I am the Director of School Counseling Initiatives for Inspire Success, which is a really long title for I'm a retired school counselor. So I don't do this work anymore, but I used to. And so I'm really grateful to be part of Inspire Success now. And the things that we do that apply to what we're talking about today is we are the people who moderate Counselor Talk. So all the great ideas you get on Counselor Talk, we help kind of facilitate that. We're also the people who do Counselor One Stop. So I'm getting ready to show you Counselor One Stop and where you can find some lesson plans there. And then I also had the privilege of working with Counselor Connect to create an Indiana curriculum library. I'm going to show that to you as well, just so you know where you can get some like real hands-on lesson plans that all of our speakers have spoken about. And I know they all use the Ask a template or the Carrying the Torch template. Just a little Carrying the Torch plug. We are also the technical support behind Carrying the Torch. So if you've heard something today that makes you think, I really want to check that out more, we have like carryingthetorch.org would be the website you want to go to, but I would also be very grateful to just chat with you about that if you just want to talk about logistics. Opening enrollment for next school year will start in May. So you have some time to think that through. And if I can be a thought partner to help you decide whether that's something that you want to do, happy to do that at any time. But let me share my screen real fast. Before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we can show you where some things are. First off, let me show you, this is Counselor One Stop. Can everybody see that? Is everybody okay with that? Okay, good. So this is Counselor One Stop. First of all, we try to house things there that come through Counselor Talk, anything that comes from the state or the commission, etc. We try to house everything here so you can find it. I know Amanda's really good at that with Counselor Connect as well. So between the two of us, you should be able to find the things that you need. But today I want to show you specifically that we do have a portion there for lesson plans. Remember that Counselor One Stop, for the most part, is by school counselors for school counselors. So a lot of our lesson plans were created by colleagues across the state. You will, if you want to go in and look at it by grade level, you can see the lesson plans are there and they're divided into the domains. So the academic development, college and career readiness, social emotional development, etc. Most of them are hot links and you can see what they are there. Now, these are not necessarily written by the Ask a template. They are written by whoever created them, whatever format they wanted to put them in. But there's a lot of good examples here of different lessons based on the domains. And so I would encourage you to do that, to look into that. And we also have middle and junior high school. And we also have high school. So if you want to check those out, that would be a great place to start. I also want to give a plug that, like I said, this is by school counselors for school counselors. So if you have a lesson that you say that works really well, and my kids are very much positively impacted by that, and you would like it to share it, please let us know that. We would be happy to put this on Counselor One Stop for access to that as well. But I do want to show you in particular, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put my reading glasses on so I can see. We want to make sure that you see the Indiana School Counseling Curriculum Library that was finalized just last August. This is a lesson that you can, and this is free. You can access this both at Counselor One Stop, and Amanda can show you where that's accessed through CIESC as well. Each lesson, well, there is a lesson per grade level for all of the required lessons for the state. So there are bullying prevention lessons, there's child abuse and child sexual abuse prevention lessons. There's graduation plan lessons, which of course we know will need to be updated as we go here, as we find more out about our new diploma and it gets finalized. But then there are also lesson plans by grade level. So each domain for each grade level, there is a lesson. So we're hoping that we can always add to this, but right now that's what we have access to. I do want to show you what one of them looks like. I'm just going to randomly pick a lesson here. They are written or they are organized with the Ask a template. So a lot of people alluded to this. Now there's more to your lesson plan than just going in and teaching the lesson to your students. That's the meat and potatoes. That's what you want to be able to do. But there are so many things behind that. In these lessons, they're going to show you the mindsets and behaviors that you're addressing there, because we're not going to do tier 1 lessons just based on what all of our speakers have said, what we've always done, or what's a fun lesson, etc. Ideally, you are looking at data to say, what do my students need? What are the mindsets and behaviors that I need to give them a little boost? We want to make sure those are skills that they have before they move on, etc. So these start with the mindsets and behaviors. It does give you the learning objectives. And in each lesson, then the materials that you need are linked there so that you have them. And then it walks you through the lesson. As all of our speakers have said, you may need to adjust this depending on who your audience is, depending on the time frames that you have. So never consider this this is how I have to do the lesson. This is a great way for you to start and think about your particular students. Walks you through the whole lesson, and then just as importantly is the data collection at the end. So all of them have talked about assessing impact in some way. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger so you can see. I can see some people squinting at me. How about that? Each lesson is going to include pre and post questions. Again, adjust those to what you think is important to yours. But how am I walking out and saying those students that I just met with did understand what I thought they understood when I left, so that you can adjust, right? If you miss some kids, if you know that you need to go back and maybe create some small groups around kids who are just not getting this material and it's important, etc. So it has those the pre and post assessments for you as well. And then there are also suggested follow-up plans. So what are you going to do if kids miss the lesson? And then what are you going to do for those kids who don't have mastery over what you need them to do? I'm not suggesting that you do a pre and post like intentional for every single lesson you do. Totally understand that. But there may be ones that it's super important that in your building for your program that 100% of your students got this material. So that would be the ones that you would want to be more intentional with the pre and post. So that's built into those lessons. So like Julie said, there's a lot of free things out there. All of our speakers shared with you that being organized around when am I going to go in and do these things? Who's going to be my champion? Who's going to work with me on that? It's a scope and sequence for your whole year. So as you are getting ready to think about spring break, I know you all have started thinking about spring break already. But when you come back, you're going to start thinking about what am I going to do next school year? This is a great time for you to kind of pull these lesson plans and say, where do I need to make things a little more robust in what I do as a school counselor in my system? So I know I spoke really, really fast, but I don't want to take extra time. Amanda, I'm going to turn it back over to you so you can wrap things up. But please know that we're all here to help out if you would like to see anything in particular.
Thank you to Crimson Tim, Julie, and Aimee. Great information, great resources. Really appreciate your time today, and thank you for joining us. I did just put into the chat the session evaluation. It's just a few questions long, and if you fill that out, you will then receive in your email a PGP certificate. So take a second to do that. Also want to share a few quick things before we wrap up. Free Starling Minds access to Indiana school counselors and school social workers. We share this at the end of all of our events, but just wanted to remind you that this is there. If you are not aware of what this is, it's a great mental health tool that is available online. You can create an account. There are free classes that go along with it. And it's available not only to the social worker or counselor, but also to your adult family members for free as well. So take a second to learn a little bit more about that. We are doing a coffee talk, I believe in March, where we'll talk a little bit more about the platform if you want to join us for that. We just released yesterday on Counselor Talk information about a new diploma series that we are hosting. We are actually kicking this off next week, so I know that's kind of a quick turnaround time. Rebecca and Michelle with the DOE will be joining us to just share an overview of the changes first. So if you want to join us for that one, and then following that first kickoff webinar, we will then host 3 additional webinars where we'll focus on the different seals. So that first one will be March 10th, where we will talk about the enrollment readiness seal. So hopefully you can join us for that. You can check out the schedule on the link here, and the registration for the first 2 have been posted. The third one should be posted by tomorrow. Other upcoming spring events, I know a lot was mentioned about carrying the torch. One of our upcoming coffee talks will include more information about getting involved in the carrying the torch process. So if you do want more information, like Aimee said, you can certainly reach out to her. You can join us for our counselor talk on April 16th. Either way, there will be plenty of time, opportunity for you to get a little bit more information about those things. Hosting an in-person prepare workshop in April, so wanted to plug that. And then, as Aimee mentioned, the curriculum library that was created and launched last fall, there is a link here in this graphic. That is where you can find it. It is also linked into our digital content library. So I would encourage you to bookmark that spreadsheet. That's where we post all of our recorded sessions, podcast episodes, DIY PD guides, any content we post within that platform. So go ahead and bookmark that, and that's where you can also find that curriculum library. That's all I have. Here's our contact information if you want to reach out to Counselor Connect or any of our presenters. I'm sure they would be more than happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have. So thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully we'll see everybody soon. Take care, everybody.